Hey there, my name is Kevin Kloster, and I'm the District Superintendent for the Prairie Hills District of the Dakotas Conference of the United Methodist Church. Today I'm going to lead you in a conversation, a training around staff-parish relations and dealing with complaints. This is the one area that most of us just feel underqualified and just don't want to really think about too much. But there are times when complaints do rise from members in our congregation about staff and pastors, and we just need to be aware of some basic principles for how to deal with those complaints. So let's just say a church member voices a concern to you about a pastor or a paid staff person. Whatever that issue may be, they've come to you and said, we have a concern. What do you do with that when someone comes? Well, the first thing that you do is you encourage that person to go speak directly to the pastor or the staff person. We want to avoid triangulation. The healthiest way for people to deal with conflict or concerns is to go to the person with whom they have a concern or a problem. And so encourage them to go speak to the pastor or the staff person. And perhaps they've already done so, but they're dissatisfied with the result. What you want to do then is encourage them and maybe redirect them to think of a more positive outcome. Do they need to simply forgive and let their resentment go? Is it maybe an issue that isn't as significant as what the person thought it was? And because of that, it's an issue that they can just let go of and carry on and move on. But sometimes it doesn't work that way. Sometimes the person can't or won't speak to the pastor, and the issue seems important to you. Obviously, the issue is going to seem important to the person that has the complaint, but you have to, as a staff member, decide whether or not it really is a major issue that's worth kind of floating up the chain. And if it is, then what you do is you have that person write down their concern, and you ask them to date it, and you ask them to sign it. And if they refuse to do that, then you just tell them that you don't carry verbal concerns into the committee. Everything has to be written. We don't do anonymous complaints. Sometimes you'll get letters from people and they won't be signed. And if that letter's not signed, it doesn't make it to the committee. It just doesn't go there. We don't deal with anonymous complaints. People have to be forthright and grown up, and you sign your name and you date it, and then it gets moved up to staff parish, where the staff parish chairperson will receive it. So maybe somebody wrote something to you and you give it to the chair of the staff parish. And then the staff parish chair, or maybe the secretary of staff parish, would write a letter of acknowledgement just saying, we received your concern and we're going to discuss it at our next meeting. You don't have to say any more than that. It just simply acknowledges that you received it and that you will do something with the concern. At this point, the chair of staff parish should at least inform the pastor or the staff person that there is a concern. And at that point, you can also, try to hear a little bit about what that concern may be from the pastor or staff's perspective. At the next regular meeting or called meeting of SPRC, the whole committee will decide if that concern has merit and if it deserves further attention, or if the concern has no merit and deserves no action. If not, then a letter will be written to the complainant just saying thank you for your input and informing that person that the committee will remain aware. You don't have to do anything else beyond that. The committee will discuss legitimate concerns if the committee has determined that there is a legitimate concern. And they'll share that with the pastor and the staff to reach a fuller understanding of the situation. And together, they will decide the course of action and the follow-up. It could be a progressive disciplinary plan. It could be continued growth in a certain area. That really is up to the staff person, the pastor, and staff parish to figure out how best to resolve that concern. The whole committee will decide if a joint statement is needed to the church. Most of the time, we are not elevating things to this level. This happens maybe around the areas of sexual misconduct. But before you would send a letter to the entire congregation, first visit with your district superintendent and gain wisdom and advice from your district superintendent as to whether or not a letter should be written to the entire congregation. That just elevates things to a whole new level. But what the principle that really is at play here is that whatever the committee decides needs to be honored by the committee. So if a statement is written, nobody can alter that. It goes out as written. And here's another really important piece of advice and wisdom, protocol to practice, and that is that individual letters or concerns will be received, but no petitions from groups. The last thing we want are people walking around the church trying to get rid of a pastor and creating all sorts of divisiveness. If somebody has an issue, they can bring it to the pastor or a staff person. Or if that doesn't work, then they sign a letter and date it, and it gets floated up to staff parish, where staff parish can make decisions about whether it should be dealt with. But doing petitions is really harmful to a local church, so don't encourage that. What you need to be doing is simply make known in your newsletter or your bulletin who members are of staff parish. Occasionally put something in there and encourage people to visit with you if they have compliments or complaints. And if someone comes to you with a compliment or a complaint, discreetly just keep track of who that person was and what their issue was. And then you can share that with your committee chair. And the committee chair can just kind of be listening to see if there's sort of a group of people that are dissatisfied. And then as staff parish, you might decide how to deal with that. If you're getting all sorts of compliments, it's really good to bring those back to your pastor parish committee and share that with your staff or with your pastor. But again, remember, complaints only get filtered up if there's a written letter that is signed and dated. We don't deal with anonymous or concerns. And finally, you as a staff parish are only responsible for addressing situations with your pastor and staff. If there are issues between lay people, that's dealt with the lay leadership committee or the nominating committee or your pastor. You're responsible only for dealing with conflicts or complaints or concerns that may arise with pastor and staff. So hopefully those are some good protocols for you to follow. And keep in mind that praying and being thoughtful and compassionate, and that you always have a district superintendent that you can turn to around these difficult issues. So again, thank you for your service on this very important committee in the life of the church that cares for the staff and the pastor.